Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto, Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. And of course, good morning to United States of America. We'll stay united as long as we can. We'll stay America as long as we can. But what's happening? Anyway, good morning to the rest of the world. Receiving our signals via the magic of El Internet, that magical wiring that was created by we the people, now controlled by the billionaires. Folks, we got a lot to talk about, but we want to first talk about our brother Jack Van Bever, who is still a bit achy. He's not here with us, but as usual, we have the one, the only El Señor, Howard Reynolds, who still continues to keep the strings connected, the wire strings and all those things necessary to get us on air. Señor Howard Reynolds, how you doing today, my brother?
Tin cans and string.
Tin cans and string. Tin cans and strings.
Yeah, this is the era of KPFT, tin cans and string. Friday morning at the radio, the 21st of March at just a little after 6 o'clock in the morning. And Egberto, I have a rant today.
Let's have your rant, brother. Let's go for it.
Okay. I am seeing what's going on with our country. Yesterday, by fiat, he signs a bill that says no more Department of Education. Now, how in the hell is that going to happen? First of all, you can't run the country by fiat. He's thinking that these are all laws. They're not laws. Presidential orders, executive orders are not laws, for one. For two, where are our protections? Every class, every government class that I've ever taken, every school I've ever been in that had the Constitution up there that says you're guaranteed, freedom from tyranny. And here we're seeing it, and one after the next of these government departments are falling. People are being laid off. The Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, now he's attacking PBS and NPR. Where are our freedom? I mean, where are our protections? Where are they? I want to know. Why is this happening? Where are these people who are supposed to be protecting us? What are they doing? Don't they see what's going on? I mean, every day it's something, some chaos somewhere. And then you've got a madman wielding a chainsaw, destroying departments that we paid for. We paid for those things. And I saw this posting this morning that says, Doge uncovers 15 magic money computers. Now, I don't know if that's a bunch of nonsense or not, or whether it's Elon Musk not knowing what he's doing, which, that's pretty much what I think. They've supposedly had these hidden magic money computers that just make payments out of nowhere. Is it something that he doesn't understand, like Social Security markers? Is it something that they're going to do and fire the people with the nuclear codes? What in the hell is going on in our country? In just 2 months and 1 day, we have seen the absolute destruction of our government. And we're supposed to have protections that stop that. Why are they not working? What are they doing? And then he defies judges' orders. Okay, so what's going on here? So, Egberto, that is my rant for today. And I got a little emotional here.
Brother, I read you. And you know what? You're going to get me started on this because I think that is an important thing that a lot of Americans are feeling right now. And, we had a meeting with, I just became a board member of the Netroots Nation. I'm on their advisory board, and we had our first biannual meeting last night. And it's the same feeling in there. We have got to do something. People are dependent on those of us who have a platform. You have a platform, Netroots have a platform, etc. But we all have to get together and support this because those that we voted in, Howard, simply are not doing the job. And there are specific flaws in a good constitution, but what we're showing here is that there are mechanisms that's missing that allows this to happen. And Trump is testing all the pieces of it and throwing himself right through every one of those holes. So I read you.
Well, Egberto,
Yes, sir.
in the long run, it could be a good thing. And you're wondering, have I lost my mind? No. In the long run, it could be a good thing because we will be able to strengthen our Constitution to stop this from happening again. He's showing us where all the holes are. Okay, good. That is a good thing because there are holes in the Constitutions. There are loopholes here and there, but he's showing us where they are. But in the meantime, there's a lot of people being hurt, including his own base. Mm-hmm. I saw this video the other day where these people, and there was about 10 of them or so, doing their testimony saying, I voted for Donald Trump. I thought he would be better. I thought he would do the right thing. He promised us cheaper eggs, of course, which hasn't happened. So there's voter regret. There's a lot of it. And those people are the ones we need to reach and say, look, you regret your vote. That's fine. Everybody makes mistakes. This one was catastrophic, but you can fix this. And when you tell us that the MAGA base is going to be the ones that fix it, I can see that. Because the MAGAs are going, oh, he's the greatest president until it hits their pocketbook, until they lose their house, until they lose their car, they lose their child's education and insurance on Medicaid. So, yeah, he's the greatest president until it hits you in the pocketbook. And then suddenly, oh my God, what did I vote for? So the MAGA base will be the destruction of Donald Trump eventually. And that's all I got to say. I have hijacked your show.
No. I'm going to give it back to you. This is our show, brother. This is important. Look, when I came to the United States, I came here first on a student visa, and my student visa got converted into a green card because my grandfather had gotten his permanent residency and citizenship in New York a few years earlier. So he was able to sponsor my mother, who was able to sponsor me, and got my green card. After I got my green card, as soon as I was able, I think it was a 5-year waiting time to become a United States citizen. And I became a United States citizen. But to become a United States citizen, we had to learn all the intricacies of America, the government, the private sector, all of these things we had to learn. And interestingly, I went to a Latin American school, of course, a school. I went to school on the Canal Zone. That is the area where the Americans settled 5 miles on either side of the canal because my father worked for the Panama Canal. And after there were two school systems, they were segregated, one where the Panamanians went and one where the Americans went. And in the Panamanian schools, because it was also governed by the United States governor of the territory, was just really a rented strip of land on both sides, but they had their own government. We had to learn history of both Panama and the United States and the world. So we had a hell of an education as far as what we had to learn in those schools. And it turns out our Latin American schools, because we had that curriculum, eventually, even as it had less stuff than the American school on the Canal Zone, the same separation that you saw in the United States, where the schools in the urban areas were terrible and they were fighting for integration, etc. Our schools, we were fighting for integration too. But the one thing that occurs when one is under oppression, and by the way, in those days, I had no clue that we would be considered oppressed because we were living in it. But in doing so and having to do a hell of a lot more for less, it made us that much stronger, that much more with less. We got, like I said, we learned world history, American history, and Panamanian history. So when my last 2 years of high school, I went to school in Cristobal, which was the American school. So my last 2 years of high school. And because we had all that knowledge we had to pick up on the fly, and because we had to work so hard with so little, it was a cakewalk when we went to the American schools. It was a cakewalk. So now, coming to the United States and having to pass a test to become an American citizen, by then, as far as knowledge of the American system, we were more knowledgeable of the American systems than most of the Americans we knew. That is what happens when you take a good thing for granted. And that's what has occurred in America. America has been on top of the world for so long. It has had and please don't slam me for this, but we've had a marginal constitution for so long with people who wanted to have a good thing that it lasted. It lasted because people were willing to just go ahead and forget about the flaws and live within it. Glenn Ryan is on the chat right now. Welcome. Glenn points out, yeah, the Constitution is flawed. Don't forget there was something called the 3/5 compromise. I know you won't bring up the 3/5 compromise that we eventually voted out. That is where somebody like me was only 3/5 of a person. So yeah, the Constitution did have all these problems, but we lived through it because in the aggregate, people were good. In the aggregate, people were humane. Yeah, we had issues there. We treat women not in the right ways, that we had to then eventually create amendments for that. We had to create amendments for citizenship, all that good stuff. But we were working towards doing good things, but a lot of the problems remained. We never had a president that was willing to, and people like to say he wants to test the Constitution. He doesn't want to test the Constitution, Donald Trump, that is. He wants to destroy the Constitution and use the powers of the United States to be a grifter, to be what he wants to be, to do what he wants to do. And he has a whole lot of a support cast that is willing and able, because that support cast expects to get a whole lot more out of the grifting of the American people than he does. So the Constitution was made in a manner that they thought at its inception would protect against somebody like him. Unfortunately, in order to do that, every branch of government that is supposed to be a co-equal branch of government has to do its job. And given that, and by the way, the co-equal segments of government has always been a myth. The most powerful part of the Supreme Court, if the letter of the Constitution, the most powerful part of our government, if the letter of the law were to be practiced, is really the Supreme Court. And I did a video on that I've played here several times, because again, the Supreme Court, the Congress creates laws. The president executes the laws created by the Supreme Court. The president can't create law. Okay, but the president is supposed to execute laws within that the Congress passes, and any executive order that he passes must also pass the legality of the Congress, because it's only the Congress's role to create laws. And the Supreme Court is there to determine if any law Congress creates and that a president signs is constitutional. And you know, that seems to work if everybody abides by that rule. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court, as the most powerful leg in this supposedly co-equal parts of government doesn't have any way to enforce its ruling. And when I say Supreme Court, I'm talking about not only Supreme Court, but Circuit Court, District Court, etc. That goes all, I'm talking federal courts that go all the way below the Supreme Court levels, etc. They have no way to enforce their ruling. So it has always been that the way we work as a government is we created this constitution and everybody agrees to abide by the constitution. And if a judge were to say, all right, you are in contempt of court, you're now under arrest, then that is done. Well, imagine with what's happening right now, if John Roberts, the Supreme Court Chief Justice, and the rest of the Supreme Court comes out and says, okay, the Secretary of State or the Secretary of Commerce or one of the people working under Trump decides that they are the judge decides they're in contempt, and he says, okay, you will be thrown into jail for 10 days or for a month or until you abide by our ruling. Guess who is supposed to lock him up? The executive is the one who enforces that. And who is the executive again? Oh my God, it's Donald Trump. And if he doesn't do it, right, supposedly it's an impeachable offense that Congress should be able to take out the president. But wait a minute. We have a co-opted Congress that has ceded its power to the president. So now we have purported two co-equal segments of government currently screwing all Americans. Because if they don't act, and by the way, it takes 2/3 of them to act, well, 50% to impeach him, 2/3 to convict him in the Senate. If they don't act, what happens again? Nothing. Is this a constitutional crisis that we're marching towards? Yes, actually, I think we are already in a constitutional crisis. And the reason we're in a constitutional crisis, you know how you know that? That these law firms that do governmental work are now starting to make deals with the president so that he doesn't freeze them out of government. Folks, what's occurring at the top right now are for those of us who are on, all of this can happen because all of this is behind the scenes, and most Americans are so busy going to work. They're busy taking care of their kids. They're busy trying to make enough money to survive as this power machine in Washington continues to grind. Unfortunately, the ultimate results of all of this will pain all of us. And the subjects that I'm covering today, as far as let me just tell you the title of the show today, because this is based off of Howard's rant, okay? But today's title is Why Do Wealthy CEOs Love Trump? And Lutnick urging Fox viewers to buy Tesla stock. Two subjects that ties perfectly into what happens when you have the corrupted government. And now all of us as Americans that are not the billionaire class, we are the cogs in the entire system used as just, again, remember when I use that term that we are all now antiseptic slaves, many people took offense at that. In fact, we had a caller that wanted to make sure I'm not a slave, I don't even have the pigmentation to be a slave. I hope you realize that none of that ever mattered. All the way even back into the days of chattel slavery. None of that really mattered. It was all a myth. It was all a tool. But before I get into the subject, Tag is on the line, and let's bring Tag into the conversation, and then we'll we'll continue. Glenn says you hit it on the congressional head. Congress is useless to enforce the Constitution. Amen, brother. Welcome aboard, Joe from Los Angeles, California. Glenn Ryan from Katy, Texas. And I thought I saw Burnish Woodpile. Welcome aboard. All right, come on in, Tag.
Good morning, Egberto. How you doing?
Good morning, my brother. Talk to me.
Well, how crazy are things in Washington today? I mean, it's hard to believe. I saw that when Trump released the Kennedy papers,
Mm-hmm.
he also released all the personal information of his own attorney.
Yes, that's sad, and he's raising hell now. You know, it's like, you gave out my social security number, Trump.
Yeah, and so now they're talking about all these people whose personal information was divulged. They're going to give them all new social security numbers. What a great thing! Once Elon finds that out, he won't know what to do, because he's got all these people that are 60, 70, 80 years old with new social security numbers. I mean, how bad would that be for them to figure out?
Oh, no, they're going to say somebody's manufacturing. Go ahead.
The one thing I wanted to say is that this is what we as Americans have to keep track of right now, is that all the bad indicators out of the White House are up, and all the good indicators, you know, Fed projections, things like that, are down big time. The Fed, it's just insane that the whole thing has been turned upside down in under 2 months.
In 2 months, yeah.
You can go ahead and set up categories, and you can see that, like, infectious disease is going up, and they're cutting back on help for that. So they're cutting. They're cutting the funding for colleges who, find these cures for these diseases, and all these scientific breakthroughs happens for the colleges, and they're cutting all that money out. And so to me, it's just like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. There you go.
Well, let me Tag. Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. And Howard said it earlier. MAGA, we need you now. We need you to wake up now, because this is going to affect all of us. Nobody's immune. In fact, MAGA gets hurt worse under Donald Trump. But I told Howard earlier that I consider Donald Trump a traitor. Everything that you see Musk is doing is making the country very, very weak, and it's setting up a new polar world, right? In other words, if you take a look at what Germany has just done, Germany, a country that is less than half the size of the United States of America, way less, they are already spending 1 point something trillion dollars to update their defense. They're spending a whole lot of money to do things now to create a less dependency on the United States. You may want to say, yeah, we want a whole lot of countries less dependent on the United States, but do we? One of the advantages the United States had is we were the last resort. We were the place where a whole lot of products came from. Trump is ceding all of that right now. Now we have the story of Musk getting debriefs on the war plans that the United States would have if they were to get into conflict with China. We have this former, according to his brother, this former undocumented immigrant from South Africa, an apartheid state, when he was in his time, running our country.
Yep.
And it's the thing about it is under the false premise that he's a smart person, and I look, there's so much wrong. The thing. Go ahead.
Egberto, let me say this. Elon Musk has had more gender affirming operations than his transsexual daughter, or son, or whatever she is. And so that just goes to show you how upside down things are. But I wanted to say something real quick about Germany.
Yes.
I just heard last night that Germany has taken off their cap or expanded their cap for debt,
Yes,
so they
big
can
time.
spend more money.
Yeah.
Big time. I mean, they're going to crank up their economy big time. Now, here's what I think is going to happen. Just for anybody who is in the stock market, it's time to take our stocks, our investments out of the American market and invest it in Germany or France or in India. You know, because there isn't any money to be made in American stocks right now. So,
well, the sad thing about it, Tag, is, there are times that the economy is sour, because, again, the capitalist system is made on bust cycles, right? Boom and bust cycles. Boom and bust cycles. Unfortunately, that's true. But I don't think we have ever had a bust that was created because of how many bad things the many bad things that the one head of state is doing. It's not, we had back in, I think it's McKinsey, when we had, I don't remember the name of the president, that tried to institute high tariffs that tanked the economy, brought us to help prolong the depression. We had all these different presidents that have done things, that have made things, but this is one president that is doing all things bad. He's killing our research, which kills the future. He's killing our knowledge base. All these things. Now you have countries overseas recruiting all the talent that we're letting go from our government, because we have this false belief that government is so inefficient, when the inefficient parts of government is the one that is pretty much going untouched. The military-industrial complex, the things that takes care of corporations. But the parts of government that are streamlined, healthcare, Social Security, Veterans Affairs, that need more people, not less people, that is what we are at. Hoover, thank you for that, Glenn Ryan. Hoover. And by the way, let's see. Morning, Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain. Let's see. The U.S. is getting a life civics lesson, the one they missed from slash budgets over the last few decades. Yes. So, Tag, look, right now we need our MAGA brothers and sisters to wake up, because the country is falling fast, and the Fed yesterday pretty much told you what's occurring, and they're being optimistic with what you see the Feds put out yesterday. That is an optimistic look. The destruction that Musk is doing to the country right now won't be seen effectively until 6 months down the road. And by then, if we just let that happen, it will be too late. It will. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. Thank you for that. Yes. Go ahead.
Here's the thing, is that a lot of what Musk has been doing is being overturned by the courts as we speak. And so now we have these MAGA people that are talking about all these great things that Musk is doing. Well, if they check today's news or yesterday's news, the courts have already overturned that stuff. Just like eventually the courts will have those 300 people in El Salvador back in this country to figure out who the heck they really are.
And that's a tag. That's the question. I want to correct one thing. While the court has overturned all those layoffs, so far 25,000 people in the layoff pool, those people are not back on the job. They may be on the accounts, or they'll have to be paid for those times that they were laid off, but they are not on the job. They're not doing their jobs, and their jobs are valuable. So, I understand. Yeah, the court is doing its thing, right? But if the court doesn't have an enforcement to say, get back to the job you already did, put back those letters onto USAID's building and put everything back to where it was at the time that you stopped it. None of that is there, Tag. That's the problem.
Yep, I agree.
But anyway, Tag, anything else?
Pick up the momentum.
Hey, amen.
Sorry, Egberto.
Thank you, my brother. Look, you have a wonderful weekend.
My call.
Thank you.
You too. Everybody in Houston, have a good weekend.
Thank you, brother. All right, folks, the telephone number 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738, extension number 2. Folks, any MAGA person, MAGA brothers and sisters that want to call in now, I'd like to civilly engage you, and I give you an option to tell me what you think. I would love to hear from you now before I get into my other subject. So if a MAGA person that wants to challenge or disagree with what I'm saying right now, give me a call at 713-526-5738. 713-526-5738. And of course, our regular folks, feel free to call. But anyhow, let's until those calls come in. The first thing I want to tackle is the title of the title of the article is "Why Do Wealthy CEOs Love Trump? He's Distracting from Their Own Grift." You heard the term "flood the zone." Trump is putting so much stuff out there for you to think about. Notice he released the Kennedy papers, right? Ask yourself, Kennedy was murdered, assassinated back in when? 1963, I believe. You know, how many decades ago? And now we're releasing papers and the media is taken up with all the release of these papers. Ask yourself this specific question. Why is he doing this? Well, they told you several times. Steve Bannon told you, we are going to flood the zone. By flooding the zone with news, you can't figure out all the things that are important. I told my Substack readers a few weeks ago what those of us on the good side, have to do is flood the zone with good information to bust the dam of bad information so that it flows out to sea. But that's why you hear the Kennedy reports. That's why you hear all kinds of silly story. That's why you hear the story of Gulf of America. That's why you hear the AP gets kicked out of the room because they refuse to change their AP style book to say Gulf of America. These are things to keep you distracted. That is the same thing why they bring up the trans things about trans, so that you are so taken up with your prejudices. That is why they bring up racism, so that you are so taken up with this innate the prejudices that hits you and you can't see as they're robbing you blind, as they're doing things that really, really matters, because then the news media covers those stories. You take an analysis of all the stories on the news, and very little tells you about what the billionaires are doing to rip you off. Think about how right now this reconciliation bill is being put together. And let me just illustrate. There is no way. Right now, we still have the 60 vote threshold in the Senate to get bills passed, right? To get bills passed. However, there's a mechanism known as reconciliation that allows you to pass bills as long, exactly, Howard, muddying the waters, to allow you to pass bills that don't require 60 votes because it's worked within the current budgetary framework. So if you can pass bills with the same amount of allocated money, just shift them around, you can do it. So Donald Trump promised CEOs several $1 trillion in tax cuts. But how do you do that if you know it cannot pass the Senate? Well, you rearrange your government so that you don't need any more money, right, than what has been allocated, what the Senate has already voted for. And that's what they're doing. That is the magic they're doing. But how do you get to give away that money? You have to cut programs. So you create this false thing called Doge. You start laying off workers to make believe that that's going to save you a lot of money. If you laid off all the federal workers, however million federal workers you had, you couldn't get but 5% of these trillions of dollars that we're talking about. So it is making believe that you're doing something and coming up with false numbers. Why it's the reason why the Musk numbers, every time the media looks at them, it's overblown by a bunch. That's what they want to do. They want to find this money. That's where the tariffs come from. Because notice he wants to throw tariffs. These are to make the numbers work, folks. Understand what's going on in the background. We do $4 trillion worth of trade. If we throw a 20%, aggregate 20% tariffs on that, we get just under $1 trillion a year in monies. In the ideal world, we get it just under $1 trillion. So that can make it look like the 10 years of $4 trillion or so that they need for tax cuts. Hey, we made it from tariffs, from the cuts in government employers, plus in the cut of Medicaid. And that they can do, right? Using Doge. It's all a trick on you. It's all a trick on you. And it turns out it's a magical way of raising taxes on you without calling it taxes on you. Your expenses go up by a bunch. And they can come out and say, we didn't raise any taxes and we were able to give big tax cuts and you're going to get a few pennies out of it. The pennies that you are going to get out of tax cuts, it's not going to cover the increase in price from the tariffs. So who pays the taxes again? You do. You do. People, you are being swindled. And you can still do something about it. Hey, MAGA, my friends, MAGA, where are you? I need you. We need you. We need you to go ahead and tell your Führer, we get the con. We get the grift. We understand it. You know why we understand it? Because we are starting to do some critical thinking. Understand it. The tariffs you pay, tax increase on you, on every, and by the way, since they doubled the tax rate on China to 20%, all those little things that you buy in Walmart for cheap, these aren't things that rich people buy. These are things that you buy in Walmart and all these other cheap places, right? That when you turn around and it says made in China, that new cost is on you. You are paying that rate. That's what your Führer is doing to you. And it doesn't matter to the billionaire because they get a big tax cut and they don't spend that money. They just build their wealth. All right? They just build their wealth. People, are you listening to me? I would love to hear from some of you who get it. I'd love to hear a MAGA who said, oh my God, Egberto, you know what? I see that. Now I'm going to talk to all my other MAGA brothers and sisters and tell them, you know what, man? We've been had. We've been had. All right, let's go to Patrick. Come on in, Patrick.
Hey, good morning. How are y'all?
We're fine. Talk to me, brother.
Hey, well, since we are reaching out to MAGA, I do have some questions. I think it was 2011. We took the limits of donations out of politics, and we allowed the billionaires to put as much influence into our election systems as possible.
That bill, that was actually called McCutcheon. That was the McCutcheon Supreme. Everybody think about the Citizens United. That particular one you're talking about is McCutcheon.
Okay. I'll get that information from you at 3 o'clock, and I'll look into that a little bit more. I appreciate the correction. But with that and the fact that 8 years ago we have the largest tax cut for billionaires in the United States, and everybody thought that both these things were, well, not everybody, but a good part of the population thought that both these things are good. I want to see if when they call in to talk about things, if they can tell us the tangible benefits that either of those have brought. Because if this really is good for our economy and good for our country, they should be able to pick out things that it has helped with. So I'm curious to see what they think that allowing billionaires to essentially take over and use as much influence as possible, how that's benefited us. And I'll leave my call at that.
Thank you, my brother. What's interesting, Patrick, is the answer. You are hoping that they will see the answer because you know the answer.
Yes, sir.
There you go. Thank you.
We've ever been in.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Let's go to Harry. I think, Harry, come on in, brother.
How you doing, Egberto?
I am doing fine, sir.
Good. And good morning to you, Howard. And shout out to Jack. I hope he's on the mend and getting better. I like what Johnny said yesterday about him. We need Jack for this station. He's very important. I love his when he does his wisdom on your show when he's there. So we miss that, Jack, and I hope you're listening. And I hope you're on the mend. Amen to Patrick. Patrick is absolutely right. He's a very intelligent, smart person, and as you told me, brother, there he does know the answer. How does getting rich people richer help this country? And the MAGA people, they need to call you, Egberto, so you can educate them on how they've been hoodwinked, by this grifter, and a lot of them are going to hurt with these programs that they benefit too, with Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. How is it going to help our economy by giving tax cuts to Elon Musk, to Jeff Bezos, to Mark Zuckerberg, all these billionaires, and they just pocket it and build their wealth, and they always tell these big lies, and like Larry Summers, for example, will say things, you reward success, and they're the ones who create a lot of jobs. Well, yeah, they may spend a fraction of that on that, but for the most part, they want people in their corporations and companies to work harder for less. And the other thing I was going to talk to you about with the 3 o'clock show, I was reading that article on Katie Fong, and they're going to keep her on as a consultant on MSNBC. I was just wondering, why did they have to fire her too, like they did with Joe Marie?
I think this was a mess. I think MSNBC is trying to fight Trump in one direction, but I think it also appeased Trump in the other direction. If you take a look at all the people that got canned and moved around, etc. And I swear, guys, this isn't a race card, but I mean, you just have to look at the evidence of all the people that got moved around in MSNBC. They were Latinos, Asians, and blacks. And I think that was a homage to Donald Trump, because that was a homage to DEI, the fallacy of DEI, because DEI is what ensures everybody is competent. Had we had DEI, if we were following the tenets of DEI, Hegseth could not be defense secretary. But hey, I got to move on, Harry. Thank you for your call, and thank you for what you had to say. See you at 3. Let's go to brother Bruce. Bruce, real quick, talk to me.
Good morning.
Good morning, brother.
I want to thank Tag. I learn every time he calls in, and you're right about the distractions with the news, Kennedy, etc.
Bruce, hold on a second, because I want to address Patrick real quick, because I wanted to tell him exactly about McCutcheon. Patrick, the Supreme Court ruling is McCutcheon v. FEC, April 2nd, 2014, and it says that struck down the aggregate limits on the amount an individual may contribute to a 2-year period to all federal candidates, parties, and political action committees. The first one, the Citizens United, had to do with corporations as well. And so anyway, that was like the trifecta. All right, continue, Bruce.
Yeah, a couple of days ago, scientists revealed that they had cracked something in the genetic code of the parasite that's in the saliva of mosquitoes that causes malaria. And they said it put us on the verge of a breakthrough for a vaccine or something to combat malaria, which worldwide is huge. It kills more people than all the wars. And at the time that they want to cut medical funding, we have a chance for a breakthrough that would create more goodwill towards us worldwide. I think, I may have the figures wrong, I think 600,000 people a year die from malaria.
Wow.
And this is not the time to cut medical funding. I just wanted to call in with that tidbit and get off and give time to everybody else. Thank you. And
Bruce, thank you for that. I just learned something. Like I said, I have the absolute best listeners on the planet because I learned from you all a hell of a lot as well. Thank you so kindly, Bruce. Let's go to Curtis. Curtis,
good
come
morning.
on in. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning. How you guys doing? Yeah, I just want to call, I guess, speak on a couple of things that you spoke on. Well, maybe not that, just some different ones. I guess aspect of looking at government right now. So I'm just using this analogy. It's just like some of the things in a marriage that goes bad. I think that's what happened with government, and this is how Trump is here now. Like I said, I'm not MAGA, but I am a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
I do understand the reason why Trump is here and the way he's able to move is because, like in a good marriage, sometimes you get bored. And a lot of people just got bored with what the government was doing, especially with a lot of Democrats, the way their laws was being made. Nothing was really happening. Now, although Trump is shaking up a lot, I don't agree with all of it. I do agree with the part of the Department of Education because we do know there was a big issue. I have a lot of family members part of it, and I can promise you that a lot of money was being wasted, which a lot of other places do. I'm not saying that they're the only department that was, but we look at our education system. Education system by far is failing for the last at least 20 to 30 years. And I'm saying all that because this is what I mean by being bored. No one was doing anything. It was the same thing year after year after year after election after election. Now, what Trump is doing, I can promise you, this is what I also know is going to happen. Yes, I used to work for Elon Musk. Elon Musk, what's going on with Doge is going to bring in a new era because every president after this is going to use the same concept. He might not use an Elon, but then they're going to use the same concept because the Senate and the Congress should have already been doing these jobs, looking for so-called lost money or misused money, but it wasn't really happening. We was just saying things and giving money away and supporting things that we should not support it. But like I said, I'm not trying to say, Donald Trump is 100% correct. All I'm saying is that we have to look at government different now because Donald Trump has opened up a lot of eyes. I think you guys spoke that earlier. I don't want to talk too long, but anyway, I'll end it right there. I just wanted to say, look.
Well, I really appreciate your commentary, Curtis, and I want to add to that, okay? Because you are going. There is a brother on the chat right now. His name is Glenn Ryan. And, he tags me all the time and he harasses me all the time because I've supported the Democratic Party as a lesser of two evils, as opposed to he believes in completely revamping the system, which, you know what? I agree with him, but as a responsible host, I have to see a path of how is that accomplished, because there's a hell of a lot that I agree with what you just said as well. Bored with government. I wouldn't call it bored with government. I'd call it disillusioned with government, because government, but in that, and I think, let me ask you this. Wouldn't you call it more disillusioned than being bored?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So I would call it disillusioned with government. And when I hear somebody say they're disillusioned with government, my answer to them, Curtis, is that we have to remember that government is we the people, and ultimately it's a reflection on us. I'm a foreigner naturalized citizen. Okay, I'm a naturalized citizen. I revere America because of what America sells as itself from across the world. Okay. So I'll be damned if I come over here, revamp my entire life to come to the land of plenty, the land of opportunity, the land of intelligence, the land of all these things, and then turn out that we make a few people who didn't earn. Like, you talk about Musk and you haven't worked for Musk. Musk did nothing on his own. Musk is one of the largest, and I think you would have to agree with me. He is the largest welfare queen, bar none, because all his companies.
I agree.
Go ahead. Okay, yeah,
I
all
agree.
his
I worked for Elon, so
right. Right. So when he goes out and he preaches this and he talks about all these other issues, brother, I am sorry. You're not a good example of what lifting yourself up by the bootstrap is. You started with a big donation from daddy who had an emerald mine. Now, I don't know too much about you, Curtis, but I imagine one of the reasons that the theory of republicanism fell with you is because they always talk about lifting yourself up. That's the mantra of the Republican Party. Lift yourself. In fact, my brother in the studio, Howard, is a Republican. Is an old Republican too. Was okay. Okay, was a Republican. Okay. And that is that notion that came out from you lift yourself up and all that kind of stuff. You want little dependency, etc. I am a Democrat because I'm a more bleeding heart kind of a guy. That's who I am. Okay. But I also lift myself up from the bootstrap, if you will. But I do acknowledge that, Curtis, all that taxes that you paid helped pay for a great school that I went to here in the United States, University of Texas. The $40 an hour that foreign students paid at that university didn't really cover the cost of that university. It's all of us together doing that. And that is a belief. That is where my ideology come from. I think you get what I'm saying. Curtis?
Yeah, no, I get exactly what you're saying. But the one main reason I'm a Republican, and this is, for me, I'm not speaking for all Republicans,
right.
What we call black Republicans or whatever, because I am a black man. I'm a Republican because you always see their hand. I had an issue growing up. I'm from the South, and I always had an issue because I saw Democrats would hide their hand.
Right.
They would say and speak one thing, but I knew it was always something else. Republicans, if they was what we, racist or whatever it was, chauvinistic, you saw it. They spoke it. You
right.
could, and I'm not saying that they was right about that, but I didn't have to guess who they were. So I understood the things that they wanted to pass. I didn't have to say, oh, wow. Or, say I couldn't support people who say things like, if you don't vote for me, you're not black because I love you and things like, and like I said, and that's not a hard knock against Joe Biden, even though I didn't care for him as a president. It's just like George Bush Jr. He was probably the biggest DEI case ever created. But guess what? I didn't really vote for him like that. But there was some issues with him, but I also respected the other part. But believe it or not, he was given a lot of things. He was not very smart either. Education system for him.
Hey, look. Curtis, I want to engage you some more. I wish you call it some more because there are a lot of topics between you as a Republican. I want to say some things, but I don't have the time, and I got to get to Johnny and Brian in the next 3 minutes. So I appreciate your call. Keep listening, keep calling, and share the show. Try to bring some more of the Republicans and all of those guys into the fold. All right.
All right, sure. Have a good day.
Thank you, brother. All right, Johnny, come on in, and if we end with Brian.
Okay, with all due respect to Curtis, it doesn't take any intelligence to burn down a bridge. Donald Trump is a bridge burner. He doesn't have the intelligence nor the patience nor the willingness that it takes to design and then construct a bridge. What we have here is a Republican Party that has always been against the working class, always, my entire lifetime, and going even back before then. So when you say you vote Republican because you can see their hand, that is illogical. That makes no sense at all. That doesn't mean that you should vote for Democrats blindly either. I don't vote for Democrats blindly. As you may know, if you're a regular listener to this station, I am against the current leadership in the Democratic Party. I don't like centrist ideology. I vote for people like Bernie, progressives, unapologetic progressives. That's what we need in this country to bring it to the left where the American people wanted it and needed to be. We don't need bridge burners. Donald Trump has unwittingly revealed how we need to create a job description for that office. You don't vote Republican because you respect that they're open about their hate of you. That makes no sense whatsoever.
No, actually, though, let me just do a quick defense for Brother Curtis. And it's not. I think that was a minor thing. The Republican ideology, and you can ask Howard as well. There is a certain independence. I don't agree with it because, like I tell you about what I think about being educated at the University of Texas, I give homage to all people for that. Okay, so I don't agree with the ideology like you don't. But again, it's not just because I can see their hands. It's not his major case.
And by the way, just to retort slightly, and then I'll get off. When he and other people like him talk about this, about how the Democrats, they tell you one thing and do another, that's exactly what the Republicans do. They both do this. That's the one time I will say both sides.
That part I wanted to discuss with Curtis, but I didn't have the time. But John, let me get to Brian, and let's talk tomorrow. These are great discussions, and we have a platform where we can have it. Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you. Let's go to Brian. Brian, close her out for us, please.
Okay. Jackson, listen, I hope you get better soon. Okay. I want to talk about Elon Musk. He makes an electric car, right, to save the planet?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Why is the left wing burning his cars up? Why are they scratching them, keying them, putting feces?
I wouldn't do it. Okay, hold on a second. I don't agree with doing that at all. Okay, so it is a bad thing. I agree with you there. Continue.
Okay, yeah, I don't understand that either. Simply because he was a Democrat and now he's working for free for the government. People want to destroy his business and his. Go ahead.
No. I didn't want to interrupt you, but a lot of people feel he's destroying the country. We are going to destroy him. That's a tit for tat that's occurring right now. I don't agree with it, but that's a tit for tat that's occurring. Continue, Brian, real quick.
Okay, no, I'll close with this. So, if an endangered species polar bear jumps up and eats a pup seal, is it Donald Trump's fault?
No, it's not. All right, Brad, I got to go. You hear Howard kicking me out. Howard, anything to say real quick?
Not a thing. I've already said it.
All right, folks, look, thank you so kindly for listening. Love you all. Thanks for the intelligent conversation. politicsandright.com/newsletter is where the rest of the show is. politicsandright.com/newsletter. If you want to write me directly, go to kpft@politicsandright.com. Write to KPF, email to kpft@politicsandright.com. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics and Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Support for this show, Politics and Right, comes from politicsandright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willies.